Good morning, everybody. We have an incredible show for everybody today. What do we have?
I would say it is amazing, actually. So we have Nina Turner, national co-chair of Bernie Sanders' campaign. Be great to get an update from her. We also have the maker of that viral Sanders video going after the media that you all have been sending to us. We're going to talk to him live in studio. We've got Matt Stoller on, great thinker on monopolies and on China. We'll dig into all of that with him. And we've got our own thoughts on things, too. All that and more today on Rising.
All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, I thought we could take a quick peek at what's going on around the world right now. So this is Bolivia. Nearly 1 million pro-democracy protesters in the streets. This is Iraq, where the country is basically disintegrating before our eyes as its inept kleptocratic government installed after our fraudulent endless war falls apart. This is Port-au-Prince, Haiti, where anti-government protests are entering their fourth week. At least 17 people have been killed and around 200 injured. And this is the United States.
Why we're going here.
That's right. While the world melts down right before our very eyes, our news media and political leaders have decided to focus all of their attention on an improper phone call. A phone call by our president that was meant to hold military aid to Ukraine hostage to their willingness to investigate Joe Biden. But the investigation was never actually opened, and the aid flowed anyway. So what we're really fighting over here is the idea that Ukraine and Joe Biden were made to feel uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Hong Kong is burning with riots in the street. Egypt, whose murdering, torturing dictator we arm and support, is falling apart. We sponsor the worst humanitarian crisis of our time in Yemen. ISIS murders with impunity in refugee camps and remains active in northern Syria, where, of course, we've just abandoned our Kurdish allies to the brutality of strongman Erdogan. Iran and Saudi are at the brink of conflict. The Yellow Vests in France riot. Tunisia has been rioting for a year. Shall I go on? In the words of the prophetic Will Bunch in the Philadelphia Inquirer, who made this connection powerfully and courageously, the autumn of 2019 is fast becoming the most revolutionary season on planet Earth since 1989. The sparks are pretty much the same everywhere. The people we've tasked with running the world have, for the most part, turned out to be corrupt. Did they really think that citizens wouldn't notice? This is why when I see wall-to-wall coverage of Shift TV, I want to scream. And when I hear Democrats wring their hands about the norms and guardrails of democracy, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. And when I hear Joe Biden earnestly insist that Trump is an aberration, I begin to wonder if we don't deserve what we've gotten. Open your eyes and look around at the world in full meltdown. Or, if international affairs aren't your thing, look around at our own country, where life expectancy is actually declining. We're rapidly heading towards a recession, domestic terrorism is on the rise, and pretty much everyone is addicted to some stupefying thing, from drugs to porn to Twitter. Yet what our elite institutions have decided to focus our attention on, what really brings us into high dudgeon, causing Democrats to launch an impeachment probe that will further strain the fabric of our society, what makes Rachel Maddow must-see TV, is exactly what Trump said about Joe Biden on that phone call. The fate of the Western world hangs in the balance. What if Trump actually tried to use the presidency for his own political benefit rather than conducting the office in an honorable and transparent way? I'm sure no one has ever done that before. Perish the thought. I can't wait to have our whole national attention and decision-making process paralyzed for 4 months so that we can impotently slap Trump on the wrist, the constitutional equivalent of a strongly worded letter, since we already know the Senate is not going to convict. And if you want to indulge in the fantasy of imagining Trump actually being convicted in the Senate and removed from office, ask yourself the question, what then? What kind of leader do we get after Trump is gone, when no one has done anything to address the rot of a system that is rigged for the wealthy and the powerful, and a culture that's taught us to worship the false god of cheap crap made in China, and a people who are amusing themselves to death? So here's a little bit of advice. Order your cans of 30-year water, figure out how to make some homebrew antibiotics, and buy a mating pair of Irish wolfhounds, because, ladies and gentlemen, winter is coming. Or, you could just fritter away your time watching palace intrigue infotainment and glued to an impeachment probe with the most predictable ending ever. Don't miss tonight's episode of a manufactured drama meant to distract you from the terrifying reality that is unfolding every day if we just bothered to look. It is amazing the things that we are constantly distracted from that are happening around the world.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is the bigger cost of how much our media focuses on things that don't matter, which is that our populace doesn't understand all of these things that are happening, and then it will just become a flash in the pan, and it will come back, and they'll be like, how did this happen?
Right.
And meanwhile, people who are actually informed and are tracking these things and are like, wow, like maybe, you know, this would warrant some coverage, are like, well, you know, we tried to tell you. But whenever the media wants to focus on these surface level things, it does everybody such a disservice.
Well, and then the news media and the elites in the country want to look down with contempt at the population that they have spent and say that they're dumb when they've spent all their time distracting them and misleading them from the sort of bigger structural issues that, you know, maybe if you'd focused on, people might be more informed about.
That's even the worst part. And I think the real thing, what you're getting at here, is that it's the substance of these things does not rise to like the fire level yet. So they have to manufacture fires in things that they know that their audience is going to care about, like this impeachment stuff. When there's plenty of stuff right here that's interesting, that affects all of us and could affect the United States for years and years and years to come.
Right.
But there's nothing going on.
But it doesn't break down easily into Team D versus Team R. And so, you know, it's too complicated of a story to create these little brush fires around.
And that's why we all lose.
Yes, indeed.